Welcome to the Up and Down with Daniel and Upendo, bringing together two friends who have something to say about everything and even more to do about nothing. Bonded over more than 15 years of career milestones, boyfriends, husbands, hairstyles, and a pandemic, Upendo and I share an infectious joy for life that is only brightened by the colorful cast of friends, family, and characters we will introduce to you through this show. The Up and Down offers you a glimpse into our lives as upwardly mobile Gen Xers with a passion for all things downtown. During the day, we are professional social workers ready to serve our community and raise up justice. But at night, we are equally ready to celebrate our shared thirst for entertainment, culture, travel, food, and just about any damn thing else. Sit back to learn, love, and laugh with two authentic souls who are dear friends, committed in our adventures to leave this world safer, happier, and shinier than it was when they came into it. And welcome back to the Up and Down. How you doing, Upendo?
Hey, Daniel. How are you doing?
I'm actually awesome. I probably say that every single time, but every time I sit in this seat with these earphones on my head, I feel amazing.
Well, I feel amazing because I'm here with you.
That's very, very, very sweet. It's a little bit warm in here today, and I'm wearing a sweater. I'm not exactly sure.
That. I literally was about to say that. He is wearing a sweatshirt, so no wonder that you are a little warm. And you feel warm.
But I look good.
Okay.
All right.
Let's keep the show moving.
No, I am feeling really blessed to have this format. I feel like we are beginning to find our voice. And, I'm also feeling really energized by the launch of our first move towards commercial flight space travel today, which was pretty cool to watch that happen today.
I know. And what made it even more exciting is that it was someone, Elon Musk, with Space Force that did this. This was not anyone's government. This was an individual who had the means to make it happen with the support of our government. But I'm really impressed that he had a vision years ago for this to happen, and it actually happened for him. So bravo to Mr. Musk.
Bravo, Mr. Musk. Are you ready to buy your ticket to head to space?
Yeah, I actually said this years ago, like, if I was given the opportunity to go into space, because I'm a sci-fi buff.
You definitely are a sci-fi buff.
Sci-fi buff.
Mm-hmm.
If I was given the opportunity to leave this world and knowing that I would never come back, bye.
Seriously?
I would be out of here.
Wait a minute. Would you be first in line? Would you need to be like 100th in line? How ready?
I would be the first in line.
All right. I'm very, very, very impressed.
Sci-fi buff.
You are a sci-fi buff, but dying is not part of the sci-fi fantasy.
It's not about dying. Okay, really? So Greg is in the back playing the noise. But no, seriously, I don't see it as dying. I see it as an adventure and an opportunity to explore. And so I love to explore.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, back in the day, my biggest thrill was wanting to jump off and do bungee jumping off of a bridge. And I think I'm done with that too. So.
All righty then. So, what do we have going on for today, Daniel?
Well, today is a special day, Upendo. Today is a very special day.
Why is it so special,
Because,
Daniel?
well, I like to celebrate first.
First?
Absolutely.
Remember your first time? Okay, we won't go there.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to go there. Wait, this is an open field. Absolutely. My first time what?
Being in the seat.
That was for you, Grandma. She knows you're listening.
So today is our first one.
Today is one of our first. And today is our first guest. We have a guest on our show today for the first time.
Wow.
Woo! Actually, if our producer was paying attention, he would have given us an applause. Absolutely.
Thank you, producer.
Thank you, producer. But this is our first time having a guest, which we have been excited about having a guest, but we've been sort of patient in having the opportunity to bring somebody on to the Up and Down. And I'm really excited about it.
I am really excited too, because the guest that you are going to announce is someone that I actually
you're
know.
Going to announce the guest.
I am?
Yes, so get ready for that.
No, you're going to introduce him.
Okay.
Just because he's a friend.
Absolutely. So, but what were you saying about guests?
That he's our first guest. He's someone that I know by way of another friend. And so who we are have on the show today is someone that I think is one of the most successful people that I know in my circle.
Really?
Yes.
That's a pretty dang big statement because I'm in your circle. I know the people in our circle. And so now I'm intimidated to be having this person as my first guest. And maybe I need to go to the bathroom.
No, but the one thing he doesn't have on you.
What's that?
Yale.
You know what? Yale don't mean nothing if you're trying to pay those bills, right?
That is true.
Yale don't mean nothing. It's about what you do after Yale. But that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother episode. So we are ready to introduce our first guest ever on the Up and Down show.
Yay.
Greg, that was your cue for yay again. What's going on, Mr. Producer? I'm like queuing you up. We have Mr. Larry Patrick here, who I actually don't know much about Larry. I met Larry about 10 minutes ago, and I'm excited to hear your story, to hear about who you are. I know that you've had some great successes, and I also know that you are the most successful person that Upendo knows, which is damn impressive. So I want
He's
to
one of the most successful people that I know in my circle.
All right, so we are introducing Mr. Larry Patrick from... Greg, you are so off. We're going to have a meeting about the timing of all of our little cues coming here. So without further ado, introducing Mr. Larry Patrick.
So, Larry, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. And thank you for that intro.
I know, right? Wasn't it awesome?
It was awesome.
It was awesome.
This is awesome. I'm proud of both of you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. So I want to share this with our audience that I met Larry probably about 2 or 3 years ago. And I met him via another friend. And I remember me and Larry, when we first was introduced, we had this banter, automatic banter, where he would jive it with me and I would jive with him. And
kind of like Martin and Pam, that kind of just.
And I'm Martin.
And of course, you're Martin. Name above title.
Of course, I was Martin. He was Pam in the situation. But seriously, I met him. We had a good banter, but seriously, we had a good respect for each other.
Yes, absolutely.
I respect what you do. I respect how you present yourself in this world. And I'm so glad that you are here to share your story with us. So I'm just going to turn it over to you now.
Well, again, thank you for having me. I'm thrilled and excited and honored and all of those good things. So where do you want me to start?
Tell us about yourself. I know that you've worked in the investment world, but before we get into the actual what you've done that make you the most successful person that this woman knows, where did you come from that led you to what you do today? So
I'm going to provide a little bit detail about my background because I think it's important as you think about, I remember when I was a kid, oftentimes.
Where did you grow up at? Tell us that.
I grew up in West Palm Beach, Florida.
All right.
Which, for your audience, oftentimes they hear West Palm Beach and they think of palm trees and beaches, which that does exist. That's not where I grew up. I grew up in what we refer to as the hood, off of Rosemary Avenue. If you're from the area, in the projects, I was where I, born and raised.
Okay.
My dad, when I was in 6th grade, lost his eyesight to glaucoma. So you can imagine as a young man growing up in the inner city, in the housing projects, your father, who was supposed to guide you through the rest of life, becomes blind. And so from that point, I had to learn to manage the streets and manage life as a young man coming of age. I'll be 52 in August.
Well, you look good to be 52, Larry.
Thank you. I work
Except
out.
I work out.
Well,
I love it.
I'm trying to keep up. So, but the importance of that is if you do a history of South Florida and you understand when drugs really came in and en masse to South Florida, it was right when I was coming of age as a young man. And so if you think about all of those dynamics, and I know that people who didn't grow up with a father at home, so I'm not trying to discount their journey. But when you're coming of age, drugs and crack cocaine and gangs are starting to infiltrate your communities, and your dad can't see.
So, and just for our audience, we're talking about the 80s right now, right? So West Palm Beach, late 70s, 80s.
Yes, late 70s, early 80s. Tough time. But I love where I'm from. I wouldn't be the man I am now if it wasn't for that journey. So let me be clear there.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people don't realize that resiliency is very, very important. And clearly you are resilient.
Absolutely.
Through all those instances of growing up with those challenges.
Yes, absolutely.
So we all have stories, Larry. We've all I'm from Los Angeles, and Upendo is from.
I was born in Riviera Beach,
and it's interesting that no matter where you grow up, there are stories of persevering and resilience. We all have hoods, no matter where we are in this country, and so I think just from your brief intro so far, I'm really curious. What was your next step then, right? So you grew up in the hood, as you say. Your father has glaucoma, isn't able to provide and be that sort of father that you sort of dream about as far as providing. Perhaps I'm creating story. So what was your next step with that?
Yeah. So let me clarify. So my dad, and this is one of the things we talk about resilience and character building. What I witnessed with my dad is he never spent a second feeling sorry for himself. So you think about, my dad's a man's man, if you will. So my dad was 6'9", 270, James Earl Jones voice, built houses. He was a big rock of a man.
I would have been attracted to your dad, Larry.
Different show I will tell you about my dad. My dad did not drink or use profanity. His vice was...
women.
Yes.
All right, your dad would have been in trouble.
But loving to death. But what I would tell you is I never saw my dad feel sorry for himself. Mm-hmm. What I saw was a man that said, okay, I still got a family to provide for. And so he literally left our home, went to a school in Birmingham, Alabama for the blind and learned to do things to earn an income for the family, even though he had no eyesight. So my dad made leather goods and sold them in the community. So he would sell belts and shoes and anything else. And in hindsight, I think the community recognized what my dad was trying to do. So they all came to him for their leather goods, although quite honestly, in hindsight, some of it was not very high quality leather goods, but the community supported us in that way. So that was a point of my first instance of understanding what it means to, despite your circumstances, to still succeed.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And, again, you make assumptions. You hear someone has glaucoma and they can't see. And so sort of their life is over, especially back in the 70s, right? When the tools and the resources maybe weren't where they are today. But your father was able to exhibit this entrepreneurial spirit at a time when Black folk weren't necessarily hearing about entrepreneurs.
Not at all.
I wasn't hearing about it in my house.
Not at all.
So,
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
That's amazing.
That then speaks to who you are, watching your father take care of his family despite his circumstance. So tell us more about how that helped you be who you are today.
So that taught me, hey, life is going to show up. It's how you respond to it that matters. So fast forward, and I'm in high school. I played ball in high school, basketball, and I earned a scholarship to college. And so I go through college on a basketball scholarship. But I would tell you a funny story that I always tell people. They say, well, what motivated you to be successful? And for me, it was simple. I have a large family, and we didn't have a washer and dryer in the house. We went to a laundromat every day. And my only goal in life was, I'm going to figure out a way to get a house with a washer and dryer. That was it. I didn't want anything else because I hated going to the laundromat. And I'm not trying to disparage anyone that still is in that space, but that was my motivation. I didn't know anything about anyone else. I didn't have doctors, lawyers, or anything, and had no idea that what I do for a living even existed. So everything that I had motivation for was around getting a washer and dryer. And that was it. And I think it's important, and I'll talk a minute about goal setting, why I think that's important. Because if you think about tackling or making, wherever you are today, if you think about making $1 million one day and you're making minimum wage, well, that seems impossible. But if you're thinking about going from minimum wage to $10 an hour, to $15 an hour, that's manageable. Yes. So you have to manage your goal setting in order to achieve that ultimate goal.
Yes. And I just want to go back for a second, Larry, because your motivation was the washer
Yep.
in the dryer.
That was it.
And I mean, that actually took me back because I remember when my parents got divorced and my mom was a single mom, of course, and we had to go to the laundromat. I had never been to the laundromat before in my life prior.
What?
No, because we were upper middle class, but when my mom and parents divorced, seriously, Daniel, my mom became, lower class. I guess that's one way to say it.
It's interesting when we try to describe what our parents were, because they would be proud and say they were not necessarily.
Yes. Of
We was
course.
poor.
We were poor. But I remember that, and I remember that I said to my mom one time when we were folding clothes and it was hot, and I was like, "Oh my God, I wish you were still married." And then she looked at me and she says, "But I wasn't happy."
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Right. And so I'm thinking, I'm here folding clothes and I'm hating it. So I have some understanding of what you were talking about, that being a goal. Like, I just want a house, a washer and dryer.
Yeah, that's it.
Simply, that is simple to shoot for. But clearly, not only did you shoot for that, you are over the moon with regards to where you are today.
Thank you. And it's all about that the blessings along the way, the breaks along the way, and people helping me along the way. Absolutely.
Yes.
So, Larry, I was one of the first, if not the first. I always feel guilty about saying the first. There were probably extended folk in my family who went to college, but in my immediate family, I was definitely the first one to go to college. And I know what that feels like to be a trailblazer.
Yep.
So I'm just really curious how that experience of going to college, how that experience of being a ball player, how that played into your next steps in life. And actually, I'm going to just say for the record, we actually were going to take a break right now,
yes.
But we are feeling so good about this. We actually are going to muddle through. Our breaks really are for us to get used to having sponsorships and having people know where our commercials would be. But we're going to continue on right now for another segment because I'm feeling this and I don't want to break it up.
And I just want to say, I'm loving you right now, friend.
So our first guest has already made us break our process. So we're just going to keep on going through.
Right,
So what was the next step after college? You go to college. You're one of the first in your family to go to college.
Yes.
What was the next step?
So I go to college, playing ball, play at Auburn University, come out of college, get drafted to what was then the United States Basketball League, the Miami Tropics, and I decided not to go play.
What?
Yes.
What was they offering you money?
Yes, they were.
But that's like every black man's dream.
No, don't say that. Not every
black
man's dream.
No. We're talking real talk. When you talk to young black men today, that's every man's dream is to be a ball player.
Okay.
Or a rapper.
Let me clarify
It shouldn't be their dream, but it is.
But let me clarify something, or let me just
Welcome to the
interject.
Up and Down show.
Yes. No. But let me just interject. We're not monolithic. And the fact that you make that statement for some young African-American boy who is a scientist, who wants to be a scientist, never is into sports. So I just kind of...
I'm happy to know I am one of those monolithic or non-monolithic boys. So you are correct, Upendo.
So I just want to... We know that there's a great number of African-American boys who have aspirations to go to a professional sport, but there's a whole group of African-American boys who wants to build rockets.
Absolutely.
And we just talked about that today.
And we are so proud of those boys. And we are meeting someone who actually turned down the money of ball. Like, ball money is big money. So that's amazing.
Ball money.
So you turned down the ball money.
Yes, I turned down the ball money. And I want to be very transparent on this show in order that somebody somewhere is hearing this and it helps them move from where they are to a different space. And so it wasn't easy. It was a decision that I talked with my coach about, I talked to my family about, and everyone to a person said, go play ball. And ultimately, I decided not to. And here's why I decided not to. So I became a father when I was 18.
Shut your mouth.
Yes. And I had a daughter incredible young lady, incredible woman, great mother. But I recognized that mother was standing on her own and allowed me to go to college and do what I was doing. And I knew that ball was going to take me around the world. So I had offers to go play overseas. And a part of me felt like I couldn't do that to that child. I couldn't be unfair and be disconnected any longer. So I turned it down. And I came back to West Palm and I started working in my professional career.
Oh my goodness, that's I didn't know that. So
Yes.
I just have a newfound respect for you.
That's amazing. So you chose family over career.
I
Over
chose a
money.
responsibility. I recognized that child didn't have to come in this world. And so I had a responsibility to man up and say, her mother has done an incredible job to date, but it's not her sole responsibility. And that
Bravo.
because I was off playing ball and she was doing everything she could and doing an incredible job and still does an incredible job, I need to do my part, not just financially, but be there present in that child's life. And that's what I did.
Well, I applaud you for that. That's absolutely wonderful.
You know, it's interesting as the Up and Down show, that you being our very first guest, typically people would jump to the meat of why our guests come in and talk about sort of what makes you the most impressive person that Upendo knows.
Oh, wow. Now you know.
Now, but we've learned things that Upendo didn't even know. And this was what the show is all about. It is about the human people that we represent, right?
Yes.
It is not about our successes. It is about the journeys that we go on that make us who we are today.
Yes.
Exactly. I have a saying that every man or woman that got to where he is had to come from where he was. And so I want people hearing this to understand that when they hear the journey about where I am today, they don't think that I had a privileged background and they can achieve it. They understand that, no, my background may be very similar to yours. But where I am today is because despite those circumstances, I still achieved.
Yes.
And you can too.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a wonderful message to give anyone that's listening to this show, whether they're young or old. And I think about when we have the job that we work, we offer a fellowship. And that fellowship, with regards to the age range, it's from 18 to 80. Pretty much. You could be later in life and want to achieve even further than what you have.
Right.
So
And with that fellowship, we're specifically looking for individuals in the communities that we serve
Yes.
who maybe have not made it, quotes. You can't see, this is a podcast, you can't see my air quotes, but who have not made it. Some people have had successes, some people haven't, but it's about their commitment to their community and their internal person and dignity that we assess and when we meet them and interview them.
And absolutely, but more importantly, like you just said, it's about their journey. How do we cultivate
Amen.
their journey?
Yes. Yes.
That's wonderful. So you have this amazing opportunity. You have this ball money. You have a family come in. I didn't ask if you were married or not. That's not important. But I'm getting to know you. Were you married with the woman
No,
that you
I
had
was
the child
not.
with?
Nope,
okay.
I was not.
Were
No.
you guys a family unit or were you guys doing that sort of co-parenting?
Nope. She got married to someone else. My daughter, I think, was 2 or 3 years old. But that did not discount my responsibility.
So you still, even in that scenario, you make the decision to be a man, to be a father,
Absolutely.
to stay local,
Absolutely.
and to reapply your gifts in a different way.
Absolutely.
So what
Absolutely.
did that look like? Where did you go?
So I started my career in banking and commercial banking. I started out I was in this trainee program to be a loan officer. But when I got there, they said there was some hiccup in the process. The economy changed, so you're going to go in collections. So I started out calling people and saying, "Hey, you late on your payment."
I hate
And then there's a
people
process.
like you.
I hope they don't do this anymore, but there was something called skip tracing. Skip tracing means that you go through this process of finding people and then you show up and knock on their door.
No,
So
you
on
didn't.
Saturday mornings, to this bank, I apologize. On Saturday mornings, you're supposed to go out between 8 and 2 p.m.
So we're not opening our door between 8 and 2.
I hope they don't do this anymore. But you're supposed to go out and knock on people's doors and ask them for their payment. I never did it.
Oh my goodness.
I would go to the mailbox, leave someone in the mailbox, and leave.
Amazing.
I'm going to say this. I can see Larry being the black collector.
Exactly. At 6'5", coming through your door talking about,
Give me my money.
not
Give me
doing
my
it.
money.
Not
You
doing it.
know, there's so much that we want to talk about. There's all the stuff that we haven't even touched what we came here to talk about, what you came here that I thought I wanted to talk about. But how does a brother growing up in the hood, or is that okay that I say hood?
That's what it is.
Growing up in the hood of West Palm Beach, and I know that Tamarind,
Yes.
Rosemary,
Yes.
I've lived in Palm Beach County for 13 years. I'm in Miami now. So I know. How does a brother growing up in that environment go to banking?
Yes.
That doesn't happen. Why
Does
banking?
not.
How did that
Does
happen?
not. So I had an uncle, and this is the value of family and how you carry yourself and present yourself. I had an uncle who worked security at the bank for years.
Oh, wow.
And
And let me just stop you.
Yes.
You said security.
Yes.
I just want our listeners to
Yes.
know security.
Yes.
yes. So when I came out, at the time, I had no idea about this. I didn't know what a recession meant. I happened to finish undergrad in the middle of a recession, so there were no jobs.
Wow.
And so I go to my uncle, and because my uncle had carried himself in a certain way at that bank in security, he had a conversation with somebody. And I show up, and they're like, hey, this is what we're going to do. And that's how I started in collections. That's how I got into bank. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. That is amazing.
Well, I got a question. Did you give him $100 on the back end?
So I would give you some data points to just give you some, and then we'll talk about some more data points. I never forget, I was making, they offered me $17,500 a year.
Can I ask you what year that was?
This was 1992, 93.
Okay. Just put a pin there. Keep going. I'm going to put a pin in my head when it comes
I
to
negotiated and got $18,500.
Okay.
So that was my starting annual salary.
Okay, so...
And I thought I was paid.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Larry, let me make you laugh. My first job out of college, I graduated with a master's in social work. And my first job, they offered me $18,000. And this was in 1995 here in Palm Beach County, my first official job with a master's. $18,000, Larry. And I was like... I never made $18,000 before, and I took it. But I had a master's in about a year and a half into doing the job. All these other master's level social workers like, we're making 32. I'm like, what the?
Yeah.
So finish your story. I just want to bring back, like, when you never made that kind of money before.
You don't know. You think, hey, I made it.
Since we're sharing salaries, I will share that at that same time in about 95?
That was 95 for me.
I was a Yale graduate in 1995, and I was probably making about probably $14,000 as a Yale graduate, not bussing tables, but waiting tables at an Italian singing server restaurant. Yes, thank you very much. So y'all are kicking my ass already. So
you're making $18,500. So go ahead.
I'm making $18,500. I'm collecting overdue car notes and car loans and everybody else loan, and I'm doing that. And working my way up through the bank and doing well by my standards anyway, what I thought at the time. And I had a great friend of mine who was going to grad school. Now, let me be transparent about something. I played basketball. I grew up in the hood. That was who I was and still am in a lot of regards, 90%. I just happen to be a very, very good student. I tell everyone, I'm a gifted student. Yes. I'm not a gifted athlete. I bust my behind to become a very, very good athlete.
Wow.
I put in a lot of work to do that. School always came easy to me. Mm. So I've got a friend who's saying he's going to grad school. I didn't know anything about grad school. I didn't even know what it meant. He's going and he's talking about it. And at first, he's not getting my attention. He got my attention when he was showing me the starting salaries for somebody who has what they call an MBA.
Yes.
And I'm like, I'm getting one of those.
Wow.
So I start... And this is the important part about planning and goal setting. From that day forward, I fast forward to when I wanted to go to grad school, and I backtracked and did everything on that timeline. So I bought a new car, but I bought a car that I could afford and only financed for 2.5 years.
What kind of car was it?
I always love to hear. Nissan Maxima.
A Nissan. Wow.
All right, shut it up.
Nissan. Did you buy it brand new or was it used?
It had a Bose system in leather, and then it had a spoiler on the back, and it was cream, but had like this cream beige. Oh, you couldn't tell me I wasn't the man.
So I got to say this. So when he bought that car and went back to the hood, he was the man.
Oh, yes,
he was the man, and not a drug dealer.
And I went and got some rims on it.
You were a man.
Yes.
You were the man and not a drug dealer to be the man.
Yes.
Upendo, what was your first car? Just side note real fast.
The first car I actually bought when I became salarized was a Nissan Altima.
But you said salarized. What, did you mean you had a car before you were salarized?
Yeah.
Oh, you were real privileged. All right, now. I didn't realize who I was sitting next to.
No, my mom bought me my first car when I graduated from high school.
All right, so we have nothing in common, I'm now realizing. Wow, my first car was after graduating from college, from Yale University. After a year and a half of waiting tables, I bought a Ford Festiva, 1991 Ford Festiva.
well, let me just back up for a second. So I had a car when I turned 16. It was my mom's hand-me-down. My official first, you don't know this, I'm going to blow your mind. My official brand new car was a Ford Festiva, pink and white. My mom bought me for graduation.
I didn't say my Ford Festiva was new. My Ford Festiva was 5 years old. So clearly, the message here, boys and girls, is do not go to Ivy League colleges.
Yeah, that was my graduation gift. She bought me a 1990 brand new Ford Festiva. It was $43.35.
That is amazing. So we have our first guest ever, Mr. Larry Patrick. We are talking about his experience growing up in West Palm Beach. He has a very colorful life. I love learning about individuals' backstories, right? I thought we were going to jump right in. He is a gentleman who has made a career around investing and money, and we haven't even touched upon that. We're coming up on our first break. Should have been our second break, but we were so enthralled with you, Larry, that we couldn't even take our first break. But we're coming up on our first break. And when we come back, we're going to get into actually your career, what you did to actually make money, and advice you have for our brothers and sisters out there who maybe think making money is not part of their life story.
And specifically as it relates to their own income. That's what I want to learn about. Me being someone who's trying to make it, trying to save. How can I do this? And how can I invest?
All right, so we got a woman whose mother bought her first car who
up.
doesn't feel like she can actually save money. I also feel like I need advice from you. So we're coming back. Larry, it's so good to have you here. Can't wait for our next segment. We will be back in 2. And we are coming back here. One of the most beautiful things about having the breaks, even though we didn't take a break earlier, is actually getting to know our guest and getting to know our producer and getting to just sort of talk off air. And I will say that I wish that we had recorded what just happened, because there's a lot of really wonderful, juicy pieces of information in this room right now, including, I don't know if we shared this earlier, but Larry is actually the cousin of Greg's. And so just wanted to point that out. And just for those
who are just tuning in, Greg is our producer. Let's be clear.
Well, you've used the name Greg a few times. So yeah, Greg is a character. Greg spoke the last time we did a podcast.
Surprised us. We were into communicating. We're looking at each other, and all of a sudden Greg spoke. We're both looked at each other like, what the?
All right. One of the fun things we do at the end of all these podcasts is we come up with names for the podcast and for the different segments.
Yes.
And for that segment, the segment was called Greg Speaks.
Yes, Greg Speaks. Yes.
So, Larry, you are actually Greg's cousin.
Yes.
I just learned that, but really you said you guys are more like brothers. Yeah, you guys grew up next to each other.
We grew up like brothers. So there are a total of 4 of us, but we would, as they say, thick as thieves, and did everything together. And so to this day, he's my cousin, but he's my brother.
That is amazing. And I will also share this little tidbit that we're going to jump back into your story. But something that Greg shared was in your journeys together as cousins, brothers. And I have many cousin brothers myself growing up. It takes a village, right?
Yes.
That Greg actually accredits you for being someone in his life who sort of snapped him out of a sort of a period in his life where he wasn't focused and he wasn't on the right track.
He tells everybody that story, but he doesn't tell this part of the story.
All right. What's his part of the story?
I give him equal credit, because I will tell you a little bit of insight about your producer.
Okay.
So I've always said he's a different kind of brother.
Yes, he is.
And so I want to give you a little insight into what that means. You imagine you're growing up in the housing projects. You get a call from your cousin, Greg, and he says, "Hey, man, put on all white." I'm like, huh? Put on all white. We're going to go out to Wellington, which is where west of here and where all the wealthy people live.
You were going to say white people.
I was.
Yeah, you can say that. We don't edit here. You were going to say white people.
Yes, I was. And he says, we're going to go watch a polo match. I'm
Greg,
like,
you
what?
took it.
So again, imagine you growing up in housing projects in the hood. We play basketball and football on the street. We don't put on white and go watch polo matches. But when I think about that in hindsight, you have to understand that there's a world that exists outside your surroundings.
Yes.
And that brother always took me beyond what we saw every day. So he took me beyond the drug dealing and the broken glass and the fights and everything. He took me to another world, and he weaved, and he still weaves in and out of those worlds easily, which I don't know where he got it from. I do know his mother, but he never meets a stranger. And so while he talks about what I did for his life, he inspired me and opened my eyes to a new way of thinking and being. So he deserves equal credit by far.
Amazing.
That is amazing. Who knew that about Greg?
I didn't know, and I don't want to know anymore because his head is getting big. And we're taking away his microphone. You are not speaking again, Greg. This is the Up and Down with Daniel and Upendo. All right.
Not with Greg.
But Larry, let's move on and talk about you today. We talked a lot about your story, and there's a lot more story that can be told, I'm sure. But what do you do today? What is your career? What is your field?
So I am a partner at a firm called PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC for short.
So let me just kind of pause right there.
Yes.
You are a partner.
Yes.
Partner. I'm saying it over again. Partner.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and then I'll help the audience who may not understand what that means, understand what that means. So if you think about other corporations, and I will use some names just to provide context. So if you think about familiar household names like a Delta or a Home Depot, they are owned by the stock of that company. Well, PwC, of equal size to a Delta or Home Depot, is owned by the partners. So I am a owner in a firm that is of the same size and magnitudes of those organizations.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's a big jump for where we left off. So how did you become a partner of PwC?
Can I become a partner?
I want to be a partner.
Yes.
So you're a partner.
Yes.
Dang.
Yes. I've been a partner 10 years.
All right.
Wow. Larry. I mean, seriously, can me and the Up and Down show become a partner? Thank you, Greg.
So what's interesting for me as I'm sitting across the table from you, Larry, is again, we talked about earlier, young Black boys and girls don't necessarily have bankers as sort of role models for them. The word partner isn't something that we normally hear in for brown boys and girls, Black and brown boys and girls.
Correct.
So you are now in the financial industry.
So PwC does what's referred to as professional services. Okay. So there are two that are very familiar, I think, to everyone, which is accounting and tax. I'm not in either one of those spaces, but we have three lines of services: accounting, tax, and then the third one is consulting. I'm in our consulting practice.
Okay. And what does that consist of?
So our consulting practice is massive. PwC is the largest professional services company in the world. We've got about a little shy of 300,000 employees around the world and offices all around the world. And our consulting practice, in a nutshell, goes into corporations and help them do what they do faster, quicker, more efficient.
Okay. Okay. So let me ask you a question as it relates to that, just so some of our audience members, because we're social workers. So many of our audience members are our extended network from the nonprofit sector.
Yes.
What does that look like for a nonprofit if they were to engage you all in consulting services?
So it's really about process. So I can tell you, because of the way I'm trained, if I sit and just observe this show and the production of this show, I could take 2 or 3 minutes out of this process to get this show started. And that may sound small,
but it's a lot.
But if you think about any organization and things that you may relate to, if you think about when you show up pre-COVID, when you show up in a line at a department store or at a restaurant, that wait in that line is time that transaction could be processed and the next transaction could start. Mm-hmm. Anything that I can do to speed that process, create a better experience for you, is money.
So everything you see sort of has money attached to it, or the ability to transfer that into money.
Everything I see has a process attached to it, and that process has value. Whether that value delivers a better experience for you, more money to the bottom line, the value piece of the equation is the fallout and the result of the process improvement.
It's interesting. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, you know what? I bet you are just horrible to go out with if I was your wife. You're like, just stop it. Stop it. We are just here. Just be in the moment, damn it.
Yes,
just
absolutely.
Be in the moment. I don't need you to tell them how to do their business. Shut up, Larry. Just shut up.
But you have three kids, right?
Yes.
You have three kids, and you have three kids who you can teach these things to, because I know from me myself, who had this wonderful experience of going again to the life experiences that I've had. I didn't have a male role model to walk me through the ability to transfer my experiences into money making experiences. I had tons of role models to teach me how to enjoy life. And to appreciate life. But nobody talked to me how to make my experiences transfer into money. How did you learn that? Was that something that came innately? Were you trained to think that way?
So I will tell you, I was blessed with an incredible village, and my older brother used to take me to work with him, and he's a blue collar worker, if you will. And he would always drill in my head, you make $1, save a dime, make $1, save a dime. And he would have me repeat that, make $1, save a dime. And so that's always stuck with me.
Wow.
And that's where I started. So when I was making $18.5, I was putting a dime of that dollar away. And it wasn't until later in life when I started learning about investing in the stock market and removed the myth from it that I figured out I could take that dime and I can make that dime work far harder for me than I would in any job. And when I started doing that and I made my money work as hard as I was working, then it opened up a new world for me.
So that's important. You said you make your money work as hard as you working.
Harder than me. Yes. My money needs to be working harder than I.
Okay, so you kind of go a little bit more into that for those who are listening, because I feel you when you say that.
Yes.
And for this guy listening too. I'm taking notes over here.
But I think that's a wonderful way to think about it is make your money work harder than you're working. What is that?
So I'm going to go backwards for a second, because I think there are a couple of important points I need to make before I get to that. Just for a second, if you will. So for the vast majority of us, I'm going to ask this question back to you, actually.
Go for it.
What's the number one way that you make money?
Going to work every day and getting a paycheck.
Going to work every day and making a paycheck. Yeah, I would say that's basically it.
So here's where my process ears are trained. Your number one way of making money is you doing something.
Right.
So the first person that you've got to invest in and maximize that value is yourself.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what space you're in. I don't care if you're baking cookies, making napkins. I don't care what. You have to maximize your value, because for the vast majority of us, our value derives from ourselves first.
But so now you're talking to two upwardly mobile Gen Xers. I'm reading our profile here, but two upwardly mobile Gen Xers who have made it. In our family, we've made it, right?
Right.
We've made it, and I don't. That sounds wonky to me. That doesn't how do I invest in myself? How do I put myself first? I got bills to pay.
You're doing it now.
Okay.
So you all have created this concept in this show. The show will garner an audience because you're being authentic and real. As a result of that, that audience has spending power. As a result of that, you will have sponsors that want to have a presence on your show. By you doing what you do, investing in yourself, honing your craft around this show, you create value for yourself. That value will derive at some point economic benefit to you. Now, the key is what you do with that economic benefit, right? Mm-hmm. But right now, you're creating value for yourself. So I don't care if I have a young lady that teaches school, and she's taught school for years at elementary age. And in conversations with her, she was talking about what she makes and how little the income is. But as I kept talking to her and dialoguing, you could hear that she had so much knowledge around kids and how kids learn. So I said to her, why don't you write a children's book? And she did. And you can buy it now. So those are the things that when you start to take a step back and you have someone that can bounce these things off you, and someone that's experienced who's been on the journey can help you understand where your value is and how to capitalize on that value.
So let me just kind of go a little bit further with that. We actually create our value. We start seeing some earnings.
Yes.
We pay our producer first.
Yes.
That's number one. We pay So how do we go about investing back into ourselves that way? That's what I want to know.
few things. First and foremost, the stock market is your friend. You can look at
my 401k right now and realize it ain't my friend at all.
In fact, the true story, a couple of weeks ago, I called my 401k people to have a conversation with them. And it's so funny because, during this pandemic, people are so real.
Yes.
So I called him, I said, hey, and he told me his name. It's like, I'm here to help you. And I said, yeah, I just want to know what my current balance is. And the first thing he said, When someone says, and I was like, what does mean, Steve? And he was like, well, you had more in the fall than you have now.
Well, that was true for just about everybody.
Yeah, but the way he said it, it was like, wow. He said, I was like, just give it to me. Give it to me real, Steve. Give it to me real. So the whole point I bring that up, the stock market is not my friend right now.
It absolutely is, because this is when you want to be buying, right? So you want to buy, you want to be buying and investing when things are low. So point number one.
Okay.
Buy low, Daniel.
Buy low.
Well, what does that mean? Everybody says that, right? Buy low, sell high. Yeah, but what does that mean? That means that you have to be disciplined in your approach to investing. And so while everybody else is on bad news, that's when you're buying. So you buy on the bad news, you sell on the good news. And you have to stay disciplined.
Buy on the bad, sell on the good.
So let me hold up, because it looks like we're going to go into another segment.
Yes.
This is fascinating. How many rules are there? You said the first rule is buy low. How many rules would you say there are?
So I'm probably going to give you 3 to 5 rules, because I try to keep this very simple, and because I want to remove the fear of the stock market.
All right. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. This is very non-traditional. I'm actually going to ask you to spit out the 3 to 5 rules right now by name, so we don't sort of treat each one, because we only have one more segment to come back. There's 50 million questions that I want to ask of you.
Yes.
And the truth of the matter is, I think no matter all these rules, just buying low, already I'm hearing wah, 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 wah. I don't even know what the hell that means.
Right.
And so I'm tuning out. And I think for our listeners, if I know myself, like, I need to know that this is accessible to me. So what are the other, just spiel them out. What are they?
Buy what you know.
Buy what you know.
Yes. And I'll go into detail about what all these means.
Buy what you know. What's the next one?
Stay disciplined.
Stay disciplined.
Yes.
Okay.
Wait, that's 3 is good enough. All
right. So buy low, buy what you know.
Yes.
And stay disciplined.
Yes.
All right. So those are going to be the 3 rules, are tricks of the trade.
I'm going to give you one more.
One more. Go for it.
The market is built on greed and fear.
Ooh, I think I like that one.
Market is built on greed
and fear.
And fear.
So if I wanted to buy, am I greed or am I fear? Which one am I?
Can I answer that? Ooh,
yes.
me.
Yes.
All right. Well, we're going to go to a break right now, and then I'm going to come back and let you know if you are greed or fear. We have 15 more minutes to come back and talk to our friend, Mr. Larry Patrick. Larry, you are educating me about so much. You're about to make me some money. Upendo, I want my money to make money for me.
I want my money to make it for me too.
All right. Woo-woo. And here we go for our final segment with Larry Patrick. Larry, you have been an amazing first guest.
I've enjoyed this. This has been enjoyable.
I knew you were going to be amazing, Larry.
No, you didn't.
I did.
You're like, why are we inviting Larry?
No, seriously. I knew that you were going to be an amazing first guest for us because you're Larry.
Yeah, exactly.
You're Larry. Yeah. So I really have enjoyed listening to your story. Now I want to know how. And this show is completely about me and Daniel.
Absolutely.
And we enjoy that other people are coming along for the ride, but now we want to know. Last segment, you talked about 4 things with regards to investing.
Yes. Buy low, buy what you know, stay disciplined, and the market is based on greed and fear.
Yes.
So those are your sort of 4 principles that you throw out about making money. Can you just talk sort of just briefly, quickly about that?
I'm going to start in the reverse, the concept of greed and fear. So if you think about when you just mentioned your 401k is down, when people hear that, they all get scared and they pull their money out. That's the worst thing to do. You should be buying more. There's a concept called dollar cost averaging. I can't go into it now, but basically as you buy more, as the stock is going down, you're lowering your average cost, which means that as it goes
so the market's
up,
depending on our fear. The market's expecting us to pull out.
You're so smart, Daniel.
Wow. Okay.
Wow, you're smart.
That's amazing. That's amazing. All right. So that I didn't understand.
Ties into the buy low. So that ties in. So as the market is going down and everybody's talking about the economy's bad and everything, the world's coming to an end, you stay disciplined. Buy. When
you still buy. You don't just keep your money.
No,
because I've been told to keep your money, but you're saying not just keep your money, but you buy. You actually put your money in a dysfunctional market.
Yes.
But we can do this because we're both dysfunctional. So we got this. We got this.
I literally am sweating again right now.
We got this, boo-boo. We got this. We can do this. We're both dysfunctional.
All right. So don't fall prey to your fear. Buy low.
Yes.
And then keep
buy
going.
what you know.
Buy what you know. Buy what you know. So I hear people, we talk about, and I think we're going to get into this, is the fear that some folks have about the stock market. And because they hear these stories about people losing all their money and jumping out of windows and everything. And I will tell you that happens when people start buying things they don't understand. Buy what you understand. So where you shop every day, where you go every day, where you spend your money, chances are they're going to be there tomorrow.
So I have a question as it relates to that. So I should be buying Zoom right now because Zoom is what I know.
Well, buy what you know. Don't go buy something. If someone is talking to you about the next cure for cancer and someone has it, I don't know that you know anything about that space. So don't take a chance there.
Okay.
But if you're using that technology every day, buy that.
But buying Zoom today is what I've always heard is like kind of a thankless. If people are talking about it, it's too late, is what I've always heard.
Well, but the thing you got to understand is sustainability over time.
Yes.
So when you're starting, this is when you're starting out. Now, once you get experience, and I will tell you, the stock market is as easy as ABCs and 1, 2, 3s once you get over the fear factor.
Okay.
And so I'm telling you and your audience, when you start out, eliminate the risk. And eliminating the risk is just buy what you know. Where you go every day, buy that.
Okay.
Who you travel with every day, buy that. And when you're buying that and you're seeing masses, because those brands aren't going away overnight.
Okay.
And then the last one was stay disciplined. What do you got to say about stay disciplined?
So I have a concept, and I talked about, my brother taught me about make a dollar, save a dime. My other thing is, if it's not painful, you're not saving enough.
Yes. That I understand. That I do understand.
And I don't care how much money you make. I don't care how much money you make.
If it's painful, it's not enough.
If it's not painful. If it's painful, it's enough.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I'm really
because the same thing goes with fundraising. We're in the world of
nonprofits
raising money and something you always say. People say, "How much should I give?" You say, "You give enough until it hurts."
It hurts. Yes.
Yeah. So with saving, you save until it hurts.
Until it hurts. That's when you know you're saving enough.
All right, that one just hit me because I knew that. That's the one out of the 4 that I knew and I still avoid.
Yes. So save until it hurts. So we just a couple of weeks ago on our first episode, Larry, we talked about that something we should do is actually have a budget when we go to the store. Yeah. So
you notice we never talked about that again.
Yes, but I'm just
because we avoid it because it's so scary for us.
It's scary for us to have a budget to go to the store. So we talked about the fact that I thought I was doing good. I went to Total Wine and I was only going there for one thing. And I left there $234 later. And that was not the mission. But part of my thinking of why I did a good job, because in my mind, I love Whisper and Angel, the wine, the rosé.
Yes.
And any other store, it's like $24, $25, but at Total Wine it's $17. So I was saving money.
So you save money.
But Daniel said, no, that is not the point of the exercise, is to stick to a budget.
Right. You actually know how much money do I have to spend at Total Wine, and that's what you live within.
So then here's the thing you can do. So you pay yourself first. So establish whatever that paying threshold is for you to save, and then you can have guilt-free spending. Because at that point you can say, well, I've paid myself first. I've made it painful. So what I spend on from there, if you want to spend more money at a wine store than you budgeted, you've already paid yourself first. So you don't have to have that guilt of feeling like I'm overspending or I did something. You can walk in there and do.
Wait. Let me ask. So when you say pay yourself first, does that mean, because for me, again, because you have to realize we are your audience, right?
Yes.
We don't think the way you think. When you said pay yourself first,
Yes.
I thought allowance. I immediately thought, how much money I got to spend? Oh, I can spend more money? But you actually mean, when you say pay yourself, you mean put money away.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, Jesus,
Yes,
I'm sweating again. I'm sweating again.
But when you say put money away, like okay, if you're gonna put money away, do you have a strategy for that, Larry? Like if we make a certain amount, how much should we be putting away to pay ourselves first?
To the point that it's painful.
But I get that, but I don't get that, and I'm just, that's a reality to the point that it's painful.
And I don't know if we have enough time to define that, but I love the definition of until it hurts. Is there a percentage that you
yeah, that's
like
what I'm looking for.
So the first thing is, for those who have a 401k, you should absolutely, positively max out whatever your company matches for your 401k.
I do.
Because that's free money.
Yes, it is.
So
it's
max
free.
that out.
I'm failing this test right now.
I max mine.
All right.
And then from there, so I will share with you, I started and one of my goals is, and I have to give credit to a brother that's famous. So I happen to be, my job has blessed me to be in certain settings. So I happen to be in a meeting with the actor Hill Hopper. He doesn't even know this. And it was
sexy.
I don't know about that part, but so I'm in a meeting with Hill Hopper, and it's about 20 of us in Hill. And he said something. He said, I am unashamedly trying to make as much money as I can to fuel my passion.
Amen.
And his passion, to the audience that may not know, is really to impact the lives of Black people in a positive way.
Yes.
And I heard that and I was like, wow, that's my passion. And so what I've done is I try to educate as many people as I can on investing, so much so that I've seeded probably to date 10 investment clubs, meaning I teach people how to invest, I join a club, and then I have them take that club and go forward. So I'll give you an example. I started in 98 with my first fund with my family. I started with $35. So I'm telling you, it doesn't take a lot of money.
Okay.
We did $35 a month. That was it. And over time, that fund has sent kids to college. It has paid mortgages. It has bought houses.
Paid mortgages off?
Yes.
How much money are you putting into it now? Because you say $35. Really?
We've never increased it. No.
Individual. Wow, that's amazing.
So when you say that, I mean, I'm like literally like, we're starting an up and down fund after this goddamn show, Daniel.
We apologize for the use of using our Godfather's name in vain right now.
But seriously, like you started that was your first fund. So what is that fund? What does that fund look like today?
So I'll have you guess about what it is today.
Oh, I love this game. I love the guess game.
So I want you to think about $35 a month. It started with 10 of my family members.
So about $3,500.
But only about 5 stuck with it. And also over that time, again, we've sent kids to school, we've paid mortgages, we've done all this thing. So give me a guess what you think that fund is.
Wait,
are we guessing how much money is in the fund today?
Yes.
But
I would guess.
No, wait.
I would guess $50,000.
Okay, but let me just go back. Just as a
I'm laughing because she said 35. $35, 10 people, and you said 3,500. That would be $350. But I'm just tripping out on your math right now, sister.
No. Shut up. But no. This is just a clarified question before I make my guesstimate as it relates to that. Is that you said only so many members participated. The question is, because only so many members participated, is everybody available to the resource?
So your percentage ownership is based on your contribution to the fund.
Wow.
So they still have percentage ownership
based on what they put into the fund.
Correct.
Okay. So you said 50,000.
I said 50,000. And the truth is, I'm guessing because literally what you're saying is wah 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 wah. You have so passed my level of understanding.
So I'm going to make a guess.
Yes.
What's that?
So you said 50,000. I'm going to say 225.
225,000?
Yes, based on his direct.
I literally, honestly, I'm thinking there's $2,000.
So you guys are split it in half, and that's about what the fund is.
Shut the front door.
After
split it in half.
Yeah, so it's a little bit north of 150. Yeah. So,
wow.
but that's That's after, again,
Paying mortgage.
sending kids to college, not just one, but multiple kids to college, paying mortgages, helping family members who.
Can I be a family member now?
Wait. We actually are running out of time, Larry. And I actually think that we are going to have to invite you back as a guest because this is remarkable. This is remarkable.
They sent kids to college. They paid off mortgages, and they still have close to $175 inside a actual fund.
And they got $100,000 left.
Okay, so
like I was done. Like I ain't got no money for the milk. When he's talking, I got no money.
And seriously, I don't know if you know this. Your dad was my dad, so we're family. Can I get on that phone?
We do look alike.
Honestly, we're coming to the end of our segment and really the end of our episode. You lasted the entire episode, our first guest ever. What is one last piece of information that you would like to share with our listening audience?
Well, a couple of things. One is where I am today, anybody can do. So there's nothing magical or special about me at all. And that's why I wanted to share great details about my childhood and upbringing, one. And then secondly, you have to get over the fear of investing. And that comes through trial and error and knowledge. And it's the technology, it's very easy to do. So get over that fear, and financial freedom is the key.
So I have one additional question as it relates to that.
Yes.
Based on today's conversation, Larry, if I wanted to invest $1,000 today, where should I go to do that?
So I'm not going to tell you that because my license to be a financial advisor, I no longer have. Okay, so I'm not going to tell you where to put your money.
No, not
but
where
But what I will tell you is, you are right now in the middle of one of the. There hasn't been a time in our lifetime that's a better time to invest because of what COVID did.
Okay.
And so if you think about the industries that are heavily impacted by COVID, that were fundamentally sound, travel industry, lodging industry, you have an opportunity to invest in those companies and really...
Because they're going to build back up.
Exactly. There's nothing fundamentally wrong with it.
But let me clarify my question. So if I wanted to go to a brokerage firm, what would be the best firm for... Because
I would say you don't need to go to a brokerage firm. In the palm of your hand, you have all the power to invest today. So you can do everything.
But there are people that are technically savvy and people that are not. So if someone is confused, they have no idea what you mean by the word investment.
If you can open your phone and send a text message, you can open your phone and invest today. And I would be happy to come back and show you and bet anybody $1 because that's all I bet.
You don't bet more than
so you say that people can do this without actually hiring a professional.
You don't need to hire anybody professional.
Having a Larry Patrick next to them to do this.
Not at all.
Oh my goodness.
So last question for us. Yes. Would you help the Up and Down show invest?
Yes, absolutely.
We can start our own.
Do you believe in our model?
So if you read, I read a great documentary recently about the assassination of Dr. King. And Dr. King, by those who were involved at that time, all say the reason he was assassinated wasn't about what he was doing on the surface of Black people. It was about the economic empowerment that he was trying to provide to Black people.
Yes.
I am convinced that the final frontier for us as a people is economic parity.
Wow.
My goal is to do all I can to bring economic parity. That gives you a seat at the table. That gives you a voice.
You know what, Larry? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. We appreciate you sharing your knowledge, sharing your time with us today.
Yep. I agree with the thanks and the appreciation for the time. I'm actually having a little bit of a spiritual moment right now as I sit here. I'm the one, I know I'm the first one to cry and the first one to get emotional. But I will say that I'm sitting here realizing that I needed to hear from you today, Larry. So thank you very much. I have a huge fear when it comes to saving money and realizing that I can actually make my money work for me. And I've always heard that, but I've never understood it. And today I'm actually a lot closer to understanding that. So I want to thank you very much, Larry, for being our first guest. Our first guest. And you know what? Usually we end every show with an up, and which is usually a recommendation out to the community. But the truth of the matter is we have already gone over, and I can't even think of a better up than invest in yourself. Believe in yourself. Know that you are worth it, and invest until it hurts.
Ouch, ouch. Thank you, Larry Patrick.
Larry, you're awesome.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. You're awesome.
on, stay here, let's move on. You can move on to my place.